Welcome to the UFC Vegas number 8 DFS strategy show right here on Awesemo.com. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I am Jason Floyd. How you doing on this Thursday evening, Pete, man?
What's going on, man? What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us. Another card, another week, another card, bro.
If people knew what was the other side of the show here, but why we're laughing, you'd probably get a little laughed out of it. But we are here to talk about UFC Vegas number 8. Boy, we coming off last week's card. It can't get any worse than that. I mean, I have been covering this sport for 12 years, 11 years, something like that. I don't think I have ever seen on a UFC fight card the 3 biggest betting underdogs all win.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you what I say every week, and that the odds don't step in the cage with each of the fighters. So, anything can happen. It takes one shot. You saw that in the Valiev fight, was dominating, and Trevin Jones, second round, lands one good shot after arguably being stopped in the first and wins. That's just MMA, bro. That's the sport of fighting, and it's the most unpredictable thing and the hardest to bet.
I think that is the biggest, I know we talked about in our podcast earlier on this week to me, I think one of the storylines of 2020 in terms of mixed martial arts is, I don't know why it is, but referees are letting fights go on a lot longer than they used to. I mean, look, you could make the case that the Valiev should have, won his fight via stoppage in the first round. The referee allows Trevin Jones to stay in the fight. You look at the Daniel Rodriguez and Dwight Grant fight. I mean, Dwight Grant's, laying down punches where I think there is a good amount of referees that would have stopped that fight. It does not. And I mean, he just basically punched himself out. So we've already had one change on this card. Austin Springer now is going to take on Alex Caceres. So I did my podcast on Tuesday afternoon and my regular podcast. And I said to my co-host Daniel, I said, all right, over under 1.5 fighters we see changes on this fight card. We've already had one.
Yeah.
That's one thing when we do this show every Thursday. I feel like there is a good chance a fighter we break down tonight will not fight on Saturday night.
Yeah, that's why you guys have to check us out on Saturday for Live Before Lock. After the weigh-ins, we can really see things a little bit clearer. Also read some body language and see if somebody had a bad cut. Also, some fighters could miss weight or drop out due to medical issues. We saw that last week with Takashi Sato. So you never know with the sport of MMA. It's always something.
Bro, it's always like this sport. You just never know, man. You just never know what's going to go on. I guess the big thing we got to mention about Saturday's fight card with the main event of Anthony Smith and Alexander Rakic. This is a 3-round fight. This is not a 5-round fight. So when you're thinking about building your lineups for this fight card, I think that is something you got to think of whether or not you are going to, whether you're going to take the value play of Anthony Smith in this fight, or whether you're going to pay up to take Alexander Rakic, which I know my partner over here, Pete, he is definitely Team Rakic in this one.
Yeah, I'm a Rakic believer, man. And, it's not so much of what I saw in Anthony Smith's last performance, which definitely doesn't help things. It's just what I see from, Rakic, and it's excellent striking, just overall good game. I feel like he's on the way up in the division and, arguably won his last fight. But Anthony Smith went in there against Glover Teixeira and got beat really badly. And, took so much damage in that fight, was talking about losing his veneers and losing teeth in the fight, which is crazy. The corner should have stopped that fight, and now he's back, 3 months later to fight one of the biggest up-and-comers in the division in Rakic. I just think it's not a good idea to hop back in a fight so soon, after taking so much damage. I understand that you want to get in there and, wipe away recent memory and try to go in there and impress people and, start climbing up that division. But it's a very tough test against Rakic.
Let me ask you this. 3 months ago, it is Anthony Smith versus Alexander Rakic instead of Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. Is Alexander Rakic nearly a 3-1 betting favorite?
Probably not. It's the betting lines are definitely based on how Anthony Smith performed in his last fight, 100%.
I like the comment that Lee put here in YouTube. And by the way, if you have any questions, comments, hit them up on YouTube. If you're on the premium Slack account, hit them up there. We'll get to you as go on. And as I always say in Slack, if you one of the great ways to make sure I definitely see it is at me on Slack, and we'll definitely get to your question. But Lee brings up the pricing for Rakic on FanDuel at $23. That to me is a huge price you got to pay. And Lee's comment was, I like Rakic, but $23 on FanDuel is ridiculous.
I agree. I think 23 is insane. I like him so much better on DraftKings at 8,700. I think it's, I'm all about mid value, and I think that's upper echelon mid value, but I expected Rakic to be in the 9,000 range, and I think the DraftKings salary is just showing some respect to Anthony Smith, who was doing really well in the division, and then was just completely dominated by Glover Teixeira. So 8,700, I think, is a very nice value for Rakic. If you think that Smith has a chance at 7,500, the value is definitely there.
Yeah, I look at Anthony Smith, and I think definitely he's a value play. And I think we'll kind of talk about this as we go throughout this show. Is when you look at, because we have multiple fighters who are 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1 betting underdogs. Is if your mindset is, I'm trying to find 4 favorites with 2 underdogs, you're going to have to look at Anthony Smith, a Robbie Lawler, maybe an Ian Cutelaba in some cases. But let me ask you, in terms of Rakic, I know how much you like him in this spot, but is he a better cash play than GPP play?
It's tough to say, though, because Smith did take a ton of damage. So you wonder how affected he is from that still. You won't know until he gets cracked from Rakic. Smith is arguably one of Rakic's toughest fights, if not his toughest yet. I think it might be, and I think it's fair to say that. So does a finish happen here, Jason? Big guys throwing tons of power at each other. I think Rakic at 8,700 doesn't really necessarily have to get an early finish to pay off that salary. I think that he can do enough in a decision to get it done.
To me, this is the thing about Alexander Rakic is this is that test to find out, is he a top contender? I mean, he's had that natural progression as he's worked his way up. And I mean, look, how does Anthony Smith bounce back? I think that for a lot of people, yes, we're going to look at his last fight and say, man, it was a really bad night for Anthony Smith. How does he bounce back from that? Like, from your perspective as a fighter, when you have a matchup where you get dominated and just, beaten up as badly as Anthony Smith was, like, how do you bounce back from that? Is it more of a mental than a physical thing?
Definitely mental. Anthony Smith could lose some confidence from that. And I know that he may sound good in interviews right now, but it's another thing when you're walking out to the cage and then the pressure's on and you have somebody reminding you of your last performance. So Anthony Smith, he's going to have a gut check when he goes out there, and you don't necessarily know how somebody's going to respond. But I'm not a fan of backing a guy who just got absolutely dominated, against Glover Teixeira. Smith looked really, really good early on, and he had that James Krause-esque type of style where it's more volume, and maybe he ended up, fatiguing, and that's what led to Glover Teixeira starting to land bigger shots and uppercuts and ground and pound from hell. So maybe that's what led to the demise in that fight. But for me, just based on, I don't want to hold too much weight on what I saw because recency bias can affect your judgment big time. But I didn't like Smith's, I don't know, his confidence seemed shattered the more that he got cracked. And I feel like he was asking his corner to stop it, even though after the fight, he mentioned that he, wanted to go out on a shield. I think that it's going to take a lot for Smith to go on there and get rid of Rakic, who is an up-and-comer.
How does Anthony Smith get the job done? I mean, even though I know you've mentioned about how much you like Rakic, let's kind of give the other side of the story of of what does Anthony Smith got to do to get the win? Because, I mean, look, obviously there's going to be a lot of people, whether they're watching us live, watching us after fact, or listen on the podcast channels, that might be looking at a value play of Anthony Smith and saying, Pete, how does he get the job done?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be playing some Anthony Smith as well. I mean, the more lineups you play, the more exposure you have to certain fighters. And Anthony Smith is one of those guys that could go in there and get you a huge W because he just needs to land one shot, or he can start implementing his wrestling because he does have an underrated ground game. He just doesn't necessarily go to that well too often because he likes to strike. I think in this matchup, Smith should look to take it down or make it ugly against the cage and some clinch fighting and start to try to get on top position for Rakic, because if he tries to play a striking battle with Rakic, I feel like that's a recipe for disaster.
Mike, appreciate you hitting us up in the super chat. It says Jason didn't mean to cut you during your NBA segment, but I'm not sure what he meant by that, by the way. But I couldn't wait to see your reaction about Dot. I'm guessing he meant Dobson, not Dotson. Who would you guys target for MVP? Maybe a female fighter. Yeah, Mike, I'm not sure exactly what was said in NBA. Is that sometimes there is so many chats going on the NBA when I'm doing those NBA live for lock that I don't see them all. In terms of MVP in the female fights in this fight, we'll talk about Viana later on. That might be a potential sneaky MVP. I don't. Grasso now at 125. She's you got to pay up for her. $18 on FanDuel. Martin and Cyphers, not a confident. It would be. To me, it's take Mallory Martin or move on.
Yeah, I think Mallory Martin is going to be pretty popular based on what happens if a fighter gets top position on Hannah Cyphers. We've seen Hannah Cyphers submitted. We've also seen her ground and pounded. I don't hate Hannah Cyphers as a value play. We'll get to it, though. But I actually would agree with you that Polyana Viana is probably, of all the female fighters this card, probably my favorite.
Yeah. I kind of like what you said, Pete. I mean, I'm going to have a good amount of shares of both. I mean, that's where I use Fantasy Cruncher a lot. I would say this, a lot of my MMA lineups are hand built.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking to build 150 lineups, I'm using Fantasy Cruncher. And I'm sitting there and saying, this is the amount of exposure I want to have to this fighter, that fighter. And when you really know how to use Fantasy Cruncher, it can really help you build those lineups. Like if you're an Awesemo Plus member, you got Fantasy Cruncher, it's a great tool to use.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite. Deselect some people. Unfortunately, I deselected Shauna Dobson last week, and the biggest favorite, bigger than GSP losing to Matt Serra is pretty crazy. It was it's just crazy. That stuff happens, but in the long run, that'll end up working out for you.
This is why I love our listeners. Right after Valiev loses, someone tweets me and goes, Jason, that's why you don't play the first fight.
Yeah, that's true. And I also remember that somebody said, and I think it was Joe, that if Agapova lost, that he'd have to shave his head. So, Joe, if you're out there, I hope you're hiding. So, because I want you to keep your hair, man.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. Oof. I could not do the bald head. I could not do it.
Yeah, no, I did it.
Could
I
not
did
do
it early, but not for me.
Yeah, you were going with that quarantine haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely not to me. Hunter says, pick the winner of each fight. We will do that at the end of the show. After we get done breaking down all these fights, we'll give you our straight up picks in terms of this fight. A co-main event, we got Neil Magny taking on Robbie Lawler. Of course, initially this was supposed to be Jeff Neal. I think everyone pretty much knows that the medical issues that he has been dealing with and sending healing vibes his way. Robbie Lawler steps in this equation. Neil Magny, 8,600 on DK, 7,600 for the former UFC welterweight champion. This is one of the things that really stuck out to me when I was looking at Robbie Lawler. You realize 2013 was the last time Robbie Lawler won by a knockout in the first round.
In the first round?
Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now. Josh Koscheck, that's insane. And I think Robbie Lawler is another play in the 7K range that you can definitely look at. but I don't believe he pulls it off in this match against Neil Magny. I mean, he has a significant reach disadvantage, a 6-inch reach disadvantage, a big height disadvantage as well. And Lawler hasn't really looked too great in his previous fights. I mean, you think about the Ben Askren fight. Okay, we can not even really think about that because that's a weird matchup. That's a weird fight. The Colby Covington, the Rafael dos Anjos, the Tyron Woodley, and then the one shining moment was against Donald Cerrone in that decision fight. So for me, I mean, it's been a rough patch for Robbie Lawler, and it's how far has he really fallen? The guy has a 13-8 record in the UFC, and obviously was the former champion. So he's going to hold some ownership based on his resume. But this is a very tough fight for going up against a very long Neil Magny.
That's my thing with Neil Magny. It's got to be stick and move, right?
Yeah. I mean, the small cage is going to be tough to do so, but Neil Magny's very good at distance management and keeping fighters away from him, using his jab to, his advantage and just keeping people at the end of his punches. He's a volume guy, not a power guy, but the volume can accumulate and end up, stopping fights or making people's confidence just shatter. So Robbie Lawler needs to obviously get inside and, close the distance with some big hooks. He has the power to change the fight at any moment. Now, as far as punt plays, 7,600, I like Lawler more than I like Anthony Smith.
I like Lawler more on FanDuel than I do DraftKings.
Yeah, so on FanDuel at $14, he's a big salary relief over there, and the value is crazy. But he is 38. He has taken a ton of shots in the past, and we have seen Robbie Lawler stopped in the past too. So maybe Neil Magny, stranger things have happened, and Neil Magny doesn't have the best finish rate at 43%. But I mean, it only takes one shot.
He could land, and speaking of Magny, he could just land a lot of significant strikes with this fight standing on the feet to where even with a decision win, he might still rack up a good score. And who knows, maybe he could end up being, kind of well, I just looked at our ownership projections. He's the fourth highest owner fighter right now, which
Magny?
is, Magny, number 4. I'm pretty sure you can guess who number 1, number 2 are. I don't think you'll guess who number 3 is.
Yeah. I have no idea at this moment, but I do know that mid value this week is really juicy, like really juicy. Like Magny going up against a guy who's been struggling lately. Rakic going up against a guy who just got destroyed, absolutely destroyed. Both under 9K. Sign me up.
Yeah, it's you've got some high 9 price options this week. The question I think if you want to be a Robbie Lawler backer, and this one, Pete, your hope has got to be is that he is going to get Neil to exchange with him for and keep him in that close range. And this is kind of like if Robbie Lawler is going to ever make another run at the 170 pound title, he's got to get a win here, because if he doesn't, you can't, you just can't see it happening for him.
Yeah. It's a small cage, so Lawler should be able to get closer to Magny, but let's not discredit Magny's ground game. I mean, he does rely on getting takedowns and ground and pound and just having good position, and the volume with good position leads to stoppages. So I know Lawler has great takedown defense, and at one time was stuffing shots from everybody. You think about his reign in the 170-pound division, but that was quite some time ago, Jason. So I'm going to kind of ride the momentum and, stick with Magny on this one.
Of course, if you want to see what the ownership projections are right now, all you got to do is go to Awesemo.com/join and sign up for Awesemo Plus MMA Weekly Pass for $8.95. That'll get you our fire projections, ownership projections, and the top fighters tool. Those are tools that we use every week, putting together our lineups. Obviously that top fighter tool that Alex puts together is a great tool that you got to have. So be sure to sign up for Awesemo Plus MMA Weekly Pass today. All you got to do is go to Awesemo.com/join. Also got to let you know about the promo we got going on to get an Awesemo Plus NFL annual pass. Sign up today for an annual pass for 30% off when you use the promo code Roger at checkout. You can get all of our player projections, ownership projections, premium content, and so much more. We all know that the season's right around the corner, so be sure to use that promo code Roger, and our season-long fantasy football best ball draft kit you will get for free with your NFL annual pass. So be sure to head up right now over awesemo.com. I know Joey's been putting it up there right in the chat so you can see that as well. Moving on, we got a female fight. Alexa Grasso, big favorite in this one, now at 125 pounds. What's your take on her in this spot?
She should win the fight. But at 9,100, I really don't like it. She has looked very good in the past. Comes in with a very low finish rate of 36% against Kim at 7,100 with a finish rate of 56%. It should be a striking affair, I would imagine. But I feel like jumping up a weight class could make this bout a little bit closer than people realize. Grasso's kind of small for the division. She's going to have a 2-inch height disadvantage, but a 6-inch reach disadvantage, which definitely can make the difference. Even if you are the more skilled fighter and you are facing somebody with longer arms, sometimes you get hit with shots that you normally shouldn't, and it can make fights closer. Grasso's the A side in this fight, Jason, but honestly, this bout wouldn't surprise me if it's if it's by narrow margins. Like I really feel like Kim could have her moments. It's going to be a smaller cage. Obviously, Grasso has the more well-rounded game. I think Kim's a stretch to get it done, but not my favorite fight to target.
Kim's got a sizable reach advantage in this one of 6 inches. I mean, how much that play into your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so that I think it's that. It's also the unpredictability in the female fights as of late. Like, you think of the most sure thing was Agapova against Dobson, and we all got burned by that. And nobody had more Agapova than I did, and nobody had more Valiev than I did. Like, I literally unchecked their opponents, and live by the sword, die by the sword. I'll tell you guys and be transparent with you, but this is a fight for me that I'm not going to target too much. It's more like a 10%, 15% of my lineups type of approach to this fight. Like I said, Grasso needs to overcome the size disadvantage. But if she can get in tight, against Kim or just basically outbox Kim, it's her fight. It really is.
In terms of, I'm going to give you the number.
Okay.
The number is -405. What do you think that is?
That's a fight to go to distance. And I would agree with that because I think I don't see either one, finishing the other. Now, however, if it is a striking fight, Jason, and it does go the distance, that line could detract some ownership, and it actually could possibly inflate their score if it's just a striking match. So have your shares of Grasso. Kim, I would very lightly sprinkle in there, but I think it's Grasso's fight.
Yeah, so -405 is the over 2.5 rounds. Grasso by TKO KO +800. Kim by TKO KO +935.
Come on.
Grasso by submission +825. Kim by submission +1550.
Crazy odds, man.
Vegas believes this fight's going the decision.
Yeah, you're not always going to have the Shana Dobson pulling the once in every 5 or 10 years upsets of the decade. This isn't like Kim's not that bad of an underdog, but this fight should not end in the finish if I had to actually make a pick.
Kevin says, "Hey Pete, Magny and Grasso fights seem like fades to win. Seems like the winner won't even sniff the optimal, only if Kim gets upset or Lawler KO early."
Yeah, I would agree with that. What's up, Kev? I would agree with that, saying for Grasso. Now, Magny does have potential to break slates. You have to think about the way the fight's going to go, right? Magny's going to only be able to win the fight if he keeps Lawler away from him. And in order to do that, he needs to have more volume than Lawler. And he needs to dance around him and keep it upright. I mean, he can take him down, but like he needs to be more active than Lawler and keep him away from him. So I really don't think that Lawler's a bad. Magny's a bad play at 8,600.
Yeah, that's Magny could be a sneaky play. Could be a sneaky play. But I mean, obviously, when I first look at this card, Pete, my initial thought, lots of decisions.
Yeah.
Now, look, I've had cards where I think there's going to be lots of stoppages, and I'm totally wrong.
Mm-hmm. And Hunter's mentioning in the chat that Magny can excel in the clinch. That's true, and he definitely can. I'm not saying that he can't do that, but it's the most dangerous place for him to be. Like, let's be real, that's the most dangerous place for him to be is up close with Robbie Lawler. But I do see Magny excelling in all areas.
Next up, we've got Ricardo Llamas taking on Bill Algeo. Of course, initially it was supposed to be Llamas against Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall pulled out of the fight last week. Bill Algeo, who comes out of the Jersey, Philly area, fighting for Ring of Combat. Ring of Combat did a lot of shows in AC, Atlantic City. I'm not sure if they've been doing shows still in Atlantic City or not, but I've had a chance to interview Bill Algeo a couple of times. Obviously, he's a massive underdog in this one. In terms of, Bill Algeo's opportunities to pull off the upset, how does he get it done?
That's a tough debut fight going up in there against Ricardo Llamas. I mean, Ricardo Llamas is 38, but at one time has, fought some great names, Max Holloway, Jose Aldo. The guy's fought a ton of people, and he has a wealth of experience, UFC experience. He's 10-6 in the UFC. But Algeo's really got to go in there and just outwork Ricardo Llamas. Now, it's more of where's Ricardo Llamas at than anything, I would imagine, because how far has he dropped off? Like, is he going to go out there and look really aged? I don't think so, Jason. I kind of like Ricardo Llamas here. The only thing I don't like is his price at 9,200. I mean, the guy, he has submission ability, he has TKO ability, but he's also been finished in the past and finished pretty brutally. So I think it's Llamas's fight to win. For DraftKings at 9,200, he's a little stretch, but the guy is making his debut. Algeo's tough, has fought some really good fighters, but this could be a FanDuel fight for me. But they don't have the FanDuel salaries available right yet. But I'm going to be keeping my eyes on Llamas for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I was putting together my sheet before the show a couple hours ago at this point. They had not put up any lines on that one yet. Yeah, that is definitely a fight that will be interesting to see what they put Ricardo Llamas at. Because I mean we talked about a little earlier that $23 on Alexander Rakic could, it'll be interesting to see what is the ownership on Rakic on FanDuel at that price point. Because if you're going to take Alexander Rakic, maybe a Bill Algeo is going to be a type of fighter you're going to have to put in your lineup on FanDuel.
Yeah, and I don't hate Bill Algeo at all. It's just I'm not trying to back too many fighters that are making their UFC debut against a fighter who has 16 UFC fights, coming against some of the best fighters in the world, and should win this fight. Like, Ricardo Llamas should win this fight. If he doesn't win this fight against a guy coming in there on short notice, Jason, he could honestly be looking at his last days in the UFC, and that's just the truth. Like, I mean, where are you at right now, Ricardo?
Yeah, it's a fight, back against the wall type fight for Ricardo Llamas. Then we got a matchup, Magny and Ankaliev versus Ian Cutelaba. Of course, this is a fight that was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago, but due to COVID, Cutelaba unable to fight, got rebooked to here. Look, Pete, I don't know how long this fight's going to last. We've seen it once. This fight may last 20 seconds. It may last 5 minutes. It may last 7 minutes. I don't know if it goes more than 5 minutes, to be honest. But this to me is a GPP fight.
Yeah.
I mean, even at 9,000, that does not scare me with Ankaliev. The unfortunate part is if you have the loser in your lineup, it's probably going to be like a 5 point. But to me, these two guys are going to start flinging punches. Kutalaba wants to get Ankalaev into a brawl. But to me, this is a fight when you're talking about fights I believe are must roster for GPP. I believe you have to have the winner of this fight.
Yeah, so I am going to have a ton of exposure to this fight. Like, I'll increase my exposure to certain fights, and this is one of them. So Ankalaev in their first bout was lighting up Kutalaba, but it was a questionable stoppage, Jason. I mean, let's be real. Like, Kutalaba was kind of what we would consider rope-a-doping, I guess, even though you're obviously in a cage. He's kind of like playing the fact that he's dazed, but he was a little rocked, but I think he was playing it in. He was doing some awkward head movement to really get Ankalaev into a firefight with him. Perhaps that's what he was doing. He was trying to play like possum a little bit to get him to open up and capitalize. Now, I think that Ankalaev should win this fight. I think that he's the more polished fighter. Ankalaev should find a home for a crisp strike or a head kick. He has more tools. Kutalaba is very, very violent and probably has the edge in killer instinct. Like, this guy, Kutalaba, has a 93% finish rate compared to Ankalaev's 62% finish rate. It's honestly who lands first. Now, how will the small cage work in this fight? I'm not sure, but if Ankalaev can't keep Kutalaba away from him, Kutalaba, in the clinch can really cause some havoc and put anybody to sleep. So for me, I'll have plenty of Ankalaev at 9,000, but like, as far as 7K options, Kutalaba is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I put out the tweet after these fights are over of what was the optimal lineup in the big contest on FanDuel and on DraftKings,
yeah,
that the winner of this fight will be in the optimal lineup on both sides.
I think so. I mean, can you imagine this going 3 rounds? If it goes 3 rounds, it might be one of the most violent fights ever.
I would. Okay, let me just see what the over 1.5 rounds is on this one.
And Kevin's bringing up a great point in the chat, saying that Kutalaba on SuperDraft is 1.6 times. Like, that is crazy. So I will definitely have my exposure over there.
I will tell you, I'm looking at Ankalaev as a FanDuel MVP.
I like it.
Especially when you talk about that big bonus for the first round stoppage.
Yep.
That to me is someone you got to look for. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat here. He says top fights to target, top 3 MVP, and top 3 underdogs. Well, top fights target. We just gave you one fight you got to target.
My other fight to target would be the main event. You already know. I'm going to have plenty of that.
Man, the third one,
I'd probably say the Brady Aguilera fight. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. Top 3 MVPs, I would go Ankalaev.
I'd throw Brady in there. Rakic.
I don't love the price on FanDuel. I just don't. I don't. In terms of our top 3 underdogs, as I kind of just look at the betting odds here,
I'm going to say, for me, Maki Potolo and Alex Caceres stick out to me as really good values.
I would tell you, and we can move on to Potolo and Impa. This is one of those fights that I don't know if I'm going to roster a lot. The Contender Series, it gives us a great way to see these fighters as they're developing. And, I look at Impa and I think that he could, he's obviously someone the UFC sees some things in. There's a reason they put him in the spots that they put him in. Maki in his last fight, the way he just kind of ran into that submission and get tapped out. Man, I first off, I think they're both undersized middleweights.
Significantly.
It's one of those fights that I just don't know if I'll have many shares of.
I'm actually go ahead.
And I think it's more of, like, if I was going to play somebody, I would much more play Impa in the spot. but it's also kind of like I want to see when the bright lights are on and it's the UFC, it's not the Contender Series. What's he look like?
Yeah, so I'm actually surprised that you're not over your boy Maki Potolo, because like every time he's fighting, you like him. You tend to flock to certain fighters, and I do the
Well,
same.
he likes to throw them bungalows.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a reason his nickname is Coconut Bombs.
Yeah, but the problem is, right? I mean, this is fighting, Jason, so it's unlike anything else. But which Maki Potolo shows up? Like, you're facing a guy who's debuting in the UFC. He's 7-0. Now, 7-0 outside the UFC, right? 29% finish rate. Finish rate is not good. And we have seen on a Contender Series where Impa can take some shots and has overcome some adversity. But what happens if, like, the guy's just as skilled? Because I think that Potolo, belongs in the UFC. He's lower end, but does belong in the UFC. He has run into a submission against Darren Stewart, who would absolutely wipe the floor with Kasanganai. Absolutely. So we can't even compare, that. But, Potolo's good. Like, it wasn't too long ago we were taking Potolo over Darren Stewart or considering it. I know I like Stewart in that fight, but
no, you have not brought up the most important point about Maki Potolo.
What's that?
Does the Maki Potolo showed up against Colin Potter?
Oh my God. I know. And that's what I'm saying. Which Maki Potolo shows up? Because goes in there, I was all over him because he looked excellent in the Contender Series against Justin Sumter, landed some vicious body shots, some good shots to the liver, good shots. Okay. And then goes in there and lays an egg against, Colin Potter, who had no business beating him and just beat the brakes off him in a striking match for the most part. And then turns around, faces Charles Byrd, looks really good, goes out there. Charles Byrd ends up retiring after the fight. And then we're thinking that Maki Potolo really found his weight class. You're like, 185 is for him. 170, maybe the cut was getting to him. Darren Stewart chokes him out in one round. This is a barometer test for Impa. Like, where's Impa at? Is he UFC ready? Because unlike Impa's other opponents, Maki's going to bring it to him striking-wise, grappling-wise. Like, Maki does have some good takedown defense, and he's pretty good everywhere. As long as he's not stupid and runs out there with his neck again, I think that Maki's in play at 7,700. And the finishing ability of Impa Kasanganai is really blowing me away, of only being 29%, and he's 7-0. So the likelihood is he doesn't get rid of Potolo. So how does he last 15 minutes with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I wonder with Maki is going to be the game plan of, let me put the pressure on this guy. Let me only just be in his face, see if I can get him on his heels in the fight. But yeah, I mean, look, when we look at those under 8,000 options, if Maki Potolo wins, yeah, it's going to be a big score. But it's just like we have said, Maki has just been so up and down in the UFC. He just, when you're looking at those fighters under 8K that you trust, I just don't know where Maki Potolo fits in that category.
Yeah, I wouldn't put Maki Potolo in the trust category at all. He's a dash of GPP. He's a long shot that I'm circling, and I'll have my exposure. But like, Impa Kasanganai does have a good game of good striking, good grappling, and the best way to get a win over Maki Potolo is to neutralize the threat and take him down. So, Kasanganai at 8,500 is probably not my favorite pick. If he does get the win, I don't know how well he scores. So I'll let others dabble on his UFC debut, and then I'll just have a few shares of Maki Potolo, but definitely not too many.
Then we got a female matchup that we briefly touched on a little earlier: Mallory Martin and Hannah Cyphers. I want to say this is Cyphers' fourth fight in 2020, third or fourth fight. She's been very active. But I mean, look, it's to me, this is, I'm just not a Hannah Cyphers backer. I don't think I've ever backed her in a fight. I don't love the price on Mallory Martin at 8,900. What's your take on it?
If there was ever a fight for Hannah Cyphers to win, let's go back to her UFC career. Let's look at this. Macy Barber, we knew she was not going to win that one. Viana, she won a split decision. That's a That's pretty interesting. Jody Escobar, she won a decision. Got TKO'd by Angela Hill, knee barred by Mackenzie Dern, and then beat the brakes off by Maria Agapova and Marina choked. So, definite rough patches for her. But Mallory Martin, I feel like this could be like underestimating your opponent. Like Hannah Cifers is definitely strong, even though she's tiny. Like she's very strong. She does have some skills. I don't know if she's really in the consideration for like my money. Like I don't want to put money on Hannah Cifers. But at 7,300, what have you really seen from Martin? That, you know, she's 0-1 in the UFC. Yes, she fought Gianni Roba, who we saw go right through Felice Herrig. So she's 0-1 in the UFC, and she's at 8,900 because of just Hannah Cifers. That's really it. Hannah Cifers, you know, stretching the UFC. That's what they're basing the odds on, and the DraftKings salary is just fading Hannah Cifers. And, you know, Cifers has surprised us, and, you know, she throws with decent volume. They both have negative ratios as far as, you know, strike output and strikes absorbed. Not my favorite fight to target. It's first fight of the night. I think I'm going to follow your rule for the first time ever. But the one problem with Hannah Cifers is if she does get taken down, Jason, she can get ground and pounded and controlled. And that's kind of, if you look at, you know, Martin's best wins outside the UFC, that's what she does. She gets top position and rains down some bombs.
I do not believe it's the first fight of the night. At least when I put my sheet
together. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not. But I'm going to act like it is. Okay.
Yeah, it is the next the co-feature of the prelims, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
The feature about the prelims is Magny and Impa. Yeah.
We're gonna call it the first fight of the night, okay? I felt better when I was saying that. Now you're gonna make me feel like I have to play the check. Goodness. So now I gotta really play it. Okay, like
I'll get this is on FanDuel. I much rather play Neil Magny $18 than Mallory Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I know what I'm getting with Neil Magny. I mean, and if he goes out there and he loses to the legend of Robbie Lawler, I'm okay with it. Now, playing Martin at $18 just because I've seen Hannah Cifers lose quickly to some talented people, I don't know. I would consider it, let's call it like this. Hannah Cifers is the ultimate leverage play. And the reason she's a leverage play is because nobody wants to play her. She's 2-4 in the UFC. She hasn't really shown too much. And everybody, even Vegas, is hating on her. I mean, they have a girl who lost her UFC debut, and she's nearly a minus 350 favorite over her. So leverage with Hannah Cifers, but be careful.
Then we got Alessio Di Chirico taking on Zach Cummings. Zach Cummings been around the UFC for a long time. This is one of those fights that I keep kind of going back and forth on if you got a roster or not.
Yeah.
More based on the price point than anything else.
Yeah, so.
Especially on FanDuel.
I feel like Zach Cummings is so tough, and he is so tough. They come in with similar finish rate, 74% for Zach Cummings to Chirico at 75%. I feel like these guys are going to match up really well. It's a very even fight. Zach Cummings in the UFC is 8-4. To Chirico is 3-4. Cummings has fought so many tough people, Jason, and honestly should win this fight. Like, he has submission ability, good striking ability, good power. To Chirico has very good power. But there's a susceptibility for him to fall behind on scorecards sometimes. The problem with both of these guys is volume. Is if they don't catch each other early, will they pay off? 8,400. It's not like Cummings is priced up, but it's definitely not my favorite fight to target. But I do think Zach Cummings does enough to win.
Of course, as we do this show, both these fighters we have under 30% ownership. And of course, if you want to see the ownership projections that we have for UFC Vegas number 8, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus MMA weekly pass for $8.95. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/join and get the ownership projections, player projections, that top fighters tool, all the tools that Alex himself uses and both myself and Pete use every week. So be sure to sign up for MMA Plus MMA Weekly Pass tonight. Go to awesemo.com /join. Of course, we mentioned about there was already one change during fight week this week, and that was Caceres pulling out of the fight card, and Alex Caceres now going to take on Austin Springer. Austin Springer is fought on the Ultimate Fighter, fought in the Contender Series. Alex Caceres will probably be chalk on DraftKings this week.
It's my boy. I'll gladly take him at 7,400. Now, Alex Caceres does not have the best UFC record and does not have the best overall record. In the UFC, he's 11-10. You know him from his previous bout against Austin Hooper, just absolutely putting on a great performance. And really showing the youngin' what's up. And I don't know if I would say Springer's in that same category as Chase Hooper. So temper your expectations. I don't think that he can really go out there and absolutely dominate. But the footage that I watch on Springer, it's a little underwhelming. Like when he throws shots, obviously he throws with ferocity, but Springer does put himself in bad positions, Jason. Like I was looking, oddly enough, Caceres was supposed to fight Giga Chikadze. Springer actually fought Giga Chikadze. So I was watching that fight on the Contender Series. And, if Chikadze had better jiu-jitsu, I feel like he could have caught Springer in plenty of submissions from a triangle, an armbar, or an omoplata at 3 different moments of the fight. And that's one thing Caceres does have is a surprising guard. So say Springer goes the route and wants to take him down. Caceres is a little tricky. He's tricky standing up and he's tricky on the mat. Now, when you're 11-10 in the UFC, you've seen it all. You've seen a lot, but you've also lost a lot. So hopefully losing hasn't become a habit for him. And, he's back on the winning ways, beating Chase Hooper. So give me Alex Caceres here at 7,400. I like him. FanDuel at $13 is amazing. I'll have to see what Springer's priced at for me to consider him. But making his UFC debut, I'm not too impressed with Springer, to be honest.
It's going to be Chalk City, man. Chalk City.
Yeah, I don't mind it, though, Jason. He should do well. The problem is finishing ability. Let's bring this up. Alex Caceres has a 50% finish rate. Average time in the cage is 12 minutes and 18 seconds. So that means typically his fights go the distance, not really a finish machine. But at 7,400, I'll kind of bite the bullet a little bit and definitely have my shares of him.
Next up, we got the female matchup between Viana and Whitmire. This is Pete's favorite fight of the week, the 8,200, 8,000 matchup. And there was Charlie asked this question. He says, you guys see Whitmire go from pick'em to favorite or remind you of other WMMA fighters, for example, Molly McCann?
I don't mind this week, the 8,000, 8,200 fight, Jason. I'm on Viana, and I really don't want any shares of Whitmire. I really don't. I think that Whitmire gets caught in submissions too much. She only has a 25% finish rate, whereas Polyana Viana, is 1-3 in the UFC, which isn't the best, but, in her 10 victories, she has a 100% finish rate. So at least this chick's going for it, and she likes to hunt submissions or TKOs. I think that Viana should rebound and get a win here over Whitmire. Just everything I'm seeing on film from Whitmire is a little underwhelming. Her striking output, her takedown defense is okay, but it's the submission IQ that I'm worried about. And this could be an armbar from guard type of situation, but I don't care. I think Polyana Viana can do it.
And she also has a 5-inch reach advantage in the fight. So I think that's something to play there too as well. Then our first fight of the night, Sean Brady versus Christian Aguilera. Sean Brady, one of the biggest betting favorites on this card, 9,300. He's got one of the highest ownerships currently as we do this show. It's his odd matchmaking. We talked about this earlier. I believe we talked about this on our podcast on Monday. Yeah. It's just really odd matchmaking. This is, to me, I feel like Sean Brady is the game plan is going to be for him to grapple. I will say the word I typically say, to grapple F.
Yes.
Christian Aguilera.
I think it's the path to victory, and 100%. What's up, Kevin? I am not fading the first fight now. My order got all mixed up. I think they keep switching it on me. But I actually like Brady here a lot, despite the heavy price tag of 9,300. The takedowns are there. He has knockout ability as well. Christian Aguilera, will be popular because at 6,900, he is kind of like the Ian Cutelaba guy who can, get you a knockout. His previous fight was in 59 seconds over Anthony Ivy, and he just threw absolute bombs. Christian Aguilera in his career has a 79% finish rate. The problem with Brady at 9,300, if I had to bring up anything, is his finish rate of only 42% in his 12-0 career. So, you don't know how the fight's going to go per se, but it's going to consist of punches, and if Brady's smart, is takedown attempts. Now, you can rack up points from takedown attempts and ground transitions and advances and so on and so forth. So I will take my chances with Brady. Aguilera needs to defend takedowns, Jason, and if you go and you dive into his previous fights outside the UFC, he did struggle with getting taken down. So maybe he's worked on things. Maybe he's refined some techniques and has some good people in his camp. But for me, it's Brady at 9,300. I don't mind him at all.
So I called Sean Brady's fight against Colton Smith for Shogun Fights. And I remember going into the fight, kind of the narrative that was around Sean Brady at the time was this was going to be the fight that got him to the UFC. And so when kind of the way the fight played out, which, I mean, he just used a strong grappling, inside boxing to get the win, I was kind of like, man, I just don't know if he's going to go out there and get the UFC. And it still took him a little more time to get in the UFC. I mean, look, I believe he's the right play. I probably like him a little more on FanDuel than I do DraftKings just because of, can he get the finish? I mean, like, if I said you got to play Sean Brady or Alexander Rakic, who do you feel more comfortable on FanDuel playing?
Brady.
The $3 can be a big difference.
It is a big difference on FanDuel. I mean, I'm not a big fan over there. But it's tough to construct lineups if you're trying to pay at the top. And, you bring up a great point with Brady. I do know that CFFC, the previous promotion that Brady did fight for, in addition to Shogun Fights, was very, very high on Brady. And they say that he's probably the best fighter to ever come out of CFFC. And if you think about some great fighters of Paul Felder and all that, like that's no joke to be saying that about Brady. So I think that even at 9,300, he can exceed his salary and really outperform it. That I don't see a person in the 9,000 range that I would like more. Like Grasso at 9,100 over Brady, no thanks. Llamas at 9,200 should win, but can't compare or compete the same as way Brady can with significant strikes and takedowns. Ankaliev, I think it comes down to Ankaliev or Brady. Who do you like more?
The ceiling is higher for Ankaliev.
Ooh. I don't know if I agree with that. I might say, this is a push-up bet right here. I like this. I just feel
Sean Brady, it could be a 70-point performance. If it's a decision.
He hasn't done it yet, though. He hasn't done it yet. I mean, he's performed really well in the UFC, and he's fought some top guys.
Look, I do not think he's going to get into a striking matchup with Christian.
I don't think so either.
I think he's going to be looking to wrestle straight from the start. By the way, be sure to hit that the like button right here on YouTube. We really do appreciate it. Let's go down our straight picks on this one. Let's you go first.
Okay. I'm gonna go Rakic, Magny, Grasso, Llamas, Ankaliev, Potolo, Cummings, Caceres, Brady, Viana, Cyphers. Yeah.
Okay.
I gotta be bold. I'm bold. I'm not a safe type of guy. Like,
all right. I'm gonna be bold right at the main event. Anthony Smith.
Get out of here, bro. Are you really?
I think he gets the job.
Get out of here! How? Please defend yourself right now. Right now on camera.
I think he's gonna take Rakic to the ground. I think that'll be the game plan. I think
All right, you ready?
he'll use kicks to get the fight to the ground.
All right, I'm going to throw out some stats at you and see if it changes your mind. 0.45 successful takedowns per 15 minutes for Anthony Smith. Still think he does it.
I believe the game plan of Mark Montoya will be to get the fight to the ground.
Ooh.
And use his jiu-jitsu.
Ooh. Now that would be smart, like especially because you just took so much damage in your previous fight. All right, keep going. I'm sorry.
All right, Neil Magny, Alexa Grasso, Llamas, Ankaliev. Give me Impa, Martin, Cummings, Caceres, Viana, and Brady.
Okay.
Appreciate the tip and donation, but yeah, not gonna. Fights are not rigged. Like
no, I'll tell you. No, so I'll just tell you, it just happens, man. It really does. Like you're bringing fatigue, you're bringing pressure, you're bringing pain. Like a lot of, I mean, we try to be Terminators as long as we can, but eventually body shots, head strikes, they affect you and they take your toll, a toll on you. So, and it all, in MMA, it takes one mistake. It's not like any other sport because you can lose by so many different ways. So to say that they're rigged, they may seem rigged of how crazy it is, but that's just how unpredictable the sport is.
Yeah. We'll get some questions in before we get out of here. Ty, it's not Cash Core, Cash Studs on FanDuel.
Studs, huh? Well, I think Magny is interesting based on volume. Ankaliev, I love Ankaliev. Ankaliev and Brady. I like those guys.
Let's see here.
And then in reference to decisions being rigged, there are some bad decisions. I'll have to say that there are plenty of bad decisions.
Yeah, look, judging is never going to be perfect. It just doesn't matter. I mean, Roma says can't wait for Kutalab away and always exciting. Yeah, that is definitely one way to describe you in Kutalaba.
I was just watching the highlight of them all. The guy's going to get punched in the face one of these days at a weigh-in because somebody's not going to tolerate that. I'm telling you right now. Like, what he does, one day, somebody's going to flip.
It's kind of surprising it hasn't happened yet.
It's bad, right? Like, tell me if he does, like, I know it's completely different weight classes, but if he tries that with Nate Diaz slaps him right then and there.
Yes. No, you're spot on. You're spot on. Brady and Maki or Lawler and Rakic.
Which platform?
Does not say.
Brady and Maki or Lawler and Rakic. Brady and Maki.
Rhett, man, I love the comment. He says, if Lionheart wins, Pete gets to mow your lawn at 8 a.m. on a weekday.
I wouldn't mind.
Bro, I was going to an early morning meeting. It was where I live, a lot of new houses are being built.
Yeah.
These guys were working at 7:15 in the morning.
Yeah, bro, you got to get stuff done, Jason. I don't know what. Like, I stay up till like 4 o'clock every morning, and like, you still got to get stuff done, bro.
Man, do you have any consideration for the neighbors?
Yeah, but weekday is no big deal.
Ooh, I don't know, bro. I don't know.
Got to do it. City work.
No, it's contractor work. It ain't city work. It's a straight up contractor trying to build a home.
True. You got to go, man. And look at, in their defense, the reason it happens early is because of the heat.
Damn right. It's really hot here in Florida.
Yeah.
really, really hot here in Florida. But let you know, we will be back on Saturday, live before lock, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Get you ready for UFC Vegas number 6. Of course, be sure to keep it locked here at Awesemo.com for all the shows we have coming up here. After this show gets done, I actually will be recording the Early Bird podcast for tomorrow's MLB action. Also, I'll be a part of the MLB Strategy Show and MLB Live Before Lock tomorrow right here on Awesemo.com. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know exactly when we are live right here on the channel. So that's going to wrap it up for the UFC Vegas number 8 DFS Strategy Show.